Last night's game with the Dodgers was about as disappointing as you can possibly get. A complete game shutout thrown by Chad Kuhl, and it's a bummer because I was very high on them, had a lot of Dodger stacks out there, and did not do well as a result of what happened in that game. And I'd love to ignore the Dodgers indefinitely because that was annoying. The problem is they are still at Coors Field. They are facing another pitcher I'm okay stacking against for tonight, and it means we probably got to go right back. Not a lot of time for those wounds to heal, but I think that is the right way to play things for tonight. So unfortunately, the Dodgers back on the menu once again. We'll try to make it more palatable, try to find ways to hopefully make it a fresh slate for us and make things less painful, but it ain't going to be easy. So we'll dive on in and get you set for this Tuesday night slate. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberfire.com. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberfire.com, here to break down this 14-game main slate with locks set for 7:05 p.m. Eastern for today. The lone weather note for tonight is that at Wrigley Field, winds are out to center at 11 miles per hour. It's also 80 degrees. So not like a 16 mile per hour wind or anything like that, but it is 11. It is pretty warm. So not a massive bump up to batters, but I do think I would give a boost to hitters for the Reds and the Cubs at Wrigley Field. Cubs facing Luis Castillo, that's pretty tough, but if you want to get some one-offs in there, get some Reds in there, I think that could be justifiable based on the weather. Total is rising in that game already as we speak. We'll break down the pitching preview in just 1 second, but first, a quick reminder, we have our PGA podcast coming up later on today, right here on the same podcast feed. Myself and Brandon Gadula breaking down this weekend's event, the John Deere Classic out in Illinois. We'll break that down from a DFS perspective, let you know who is still in the field, let you know it's kind of a wonky field for this week. Guys we're leaning towards, what we like in each salary tier, and much more. To get that podcast and all of our MLB, UFC, and NASCAR podcasts, make sure you are subscribed to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, sports fans, there is no better time than today to sign up for FanDuel Fantasy. For users who have yet to make a deposit on FanDuel Fantasy, you can deposit today to receive 2 free entries. All you have to do is deposit a minimum of $10 into your FanDuel DFS account, and you will be instantly rewarded with 2 free vouchers. This is a limited time offer, so be sure to deposit now and play for free. Head to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Fantasy app today. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details. Pitching preview for this Tuesday main slate. Carlos Rodon is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel, checking in at $10,600, followed by Zach Wheeler at $10,400. Framber Valdez is $10,200 with Robbie Ray at $10,200 as well. Zach Gallen is $10,000 with Clayton Kershaw and Coors at $99,000. Sean Manaea facing Gallen is $98,000. Johnny Cueto is $96,000. Charlie Morton $95,000. Brandon Woodruff $94,000. Frankie Montas is $92,000 at Yankee Stadium, and Tarek Skubal is $9,000. Carlos Carrasco, John Gray, Luis Castillo, Michael Wacha, and Dean Kramer are the others at $8,000 or higher. Now, for tonight, I think that there are 2 great options, and they depend on which format you're playing. For cash games, give me Carlos Rodon as a top option. We'll talk about him here. We'll talk about the top tournament arm after that. Rodon is at home against the Tigers. That should pretty much explain all of it, because the Tigers, although they've been trending up and they are better against lefties, they're still a team we can definitely feel good about targeting with an opposing lefty. They have a 120 ISO against lefties with a 97 WRC plus. It's still a plus spot. As we discussed a few times recently, Rodon's velocity has been down, and it's a sample that spans 6 starts now. The strikeouts have not been as steady in this time, but the results are phenomenal for Rodon. He has a 1.78 ERA. He has had 8+ strikeouts in 3 straight starts. He had double digits against the Braves in Atlanta, his most recent start. Now he goes from that stuff to facing the Tigers at home. I do think the velocity is concerning because something like that can sometimes predict a backslide in results. But we aren't seeing that with Rodon. 5 starts, a big enough sample to see some concern. And it's especially, I think, reassuring that we're not seeing that backslide in either the results or the peripherals. We're going to see Rodon at massive popularity. It's an easy button matchup. He's at home coming off a huge game. And that's why I think there's leeway to potentially deviate in tournaments because you have 14 games on the slate. You can potentially, feel good about going elsewhere. But for cash games, it's as easy as it gets just to lock in Rodon and feel good about him there. So Carlos Rodon, to me, the top pitcher of the night. For tournaments, it is a pretty scary matchup for Zach Wheeler, and that can be concerning for sure. But I do like him quite a bit, and I will be in on him for sure. He's facing the Braves. Sorry, my dog was scratching herself behind me, and I was very concerned about what was going on. Weird noises. Anyway, Zach Wheeler gets the Braves. Scary matchup, but I do think he is the top tournament option for tonight. The Braves aren't a team I really want to target too much. They have a 110 WRC plus against righties in their active roster. They have a lot of power. It's a bad spot for Wheeler. But Wheeler is more equipped to handle a tough matchup than some. He always has had great batted ball data, and that's for the includes this year too. For the full season, Wheeler has let up a 31% fly ball rate with a 35% hard hit rate, and that can help against a powerful team like the Braves. We have seen Wheeler filtering in more curveballs recently, and that could be concerning because if you toss in more off-speed stuff, it can sometimes alter your batted ball profile, which we want to stay steady with Wheeler. We didn't see that happen here so far, though, because he still has just a 27% fly ball rate allowed in the 5 starts with more curves. So actually, the fly ball rate has gone down. His strikeout rate in that time is 29%. The Braves will strike out. They have a 26% strikeout rate against righties. Wheeler faced them once earlier on this year. That was in Atlanta, and he still got 10 strikeouts in 6 innings. Now they go to Philadelphia, and he does have bigger home road splits than some do. So this is a boost to get him at home in this spot. I would be high on Wheeler for tournaments. I think he's a consider. I honestly would consider him for cash. I don't think you need to with Rodon being there, but like for some reason you don't like Rodon, I think you could go there too. So we've got Robbie Ray. We got some other good pitchers in the slate. To me, it's Carlos Rodon for cash games, Zach Wheeler for tournaments, Rodon for tournaments too. But I think that the roster rate discount here due to the matchup is pretty enticing for Zach Wheeler. So for like a single entry tournament, I'm probably leaning towards Wheeler there. For the value play, I'm honestly a bit surprised. John Gray's salary is just $8,800. I think he's proven recently that he's worth more than that, but I'll take it. I'm not going to push back on it too much. I'm fine with him here at that lower salary. He's facing the Royals, and they're not a high strikeout matchup, but they're not a bad matchup either. They have a 92 WRC plus against righties with a 121 ISO, and the strikeout rate for them is not outlierishly low. It's 20%. We can use pitchers facing the Royals if they're good enough, and I think Gray is. We have 9 starts now on Gray since his velocity stabilized, and he has a 26% strikeout rate in that time with a 3.66 skill interactive ERA. He's got pretty decent batted ball numbers, so it's certainly not a perfect profile, but it is pretty solid, I think. We've seen some single game upside out of Gray, too. He's had double-digit strikeouts twice, and those came against the Rays and the White Sox. And although they're not great offenses, they're not pushovers either, I would say. Gray has not faced a lot of low strikeout teams in this time, so it's possible that his strikeout rate in the sample is a bit juiced up, but I like what he's done. I've got Gray projected at 6.5 strikeouts for today, and that's pretty good. I really do like the studs. I like Wheeler a lot, and I like Rodon a lot, but I will have Gray in my player pool despite that. I think he does more than enough to justify that here. If you look at Gray's profile, you will see some pretty drastic home road splits. He's only made 3 starts at home, and he's been very good in those. So I wouldn't worry too much about those. Personally, I think it's something to consider. Like, I talked myself out of his K-prop as a result of those home road splits, but for DFS, I think that there's still enough juice there to feel good about him. Okay, let's go to stacking and talk about these gosh darn Dodgers, because last night was tough. I think we got to go back, though. They're facing Kyle Freeland. He's a lefty, and that's another negative here. I'd rather get them against a righty, even despite how well that went last night, especially with Mookie Betts being out. I prefer them against a righty. But I think it's fine. We'll see. I think that maybe we just get a roster rate discount and hope for it, but I don't know. We'll see. It's not fun, but I think we should go back to the Dodgers either way. Freeland is a guy who lets up a ton of balls in play, which we should seek out at Coors Field. He has a 15% strikeout rate for the season with a 7% walker, which means he's letting the ball in play about 78% of the time. That's a big number for Coors Field. Freeland has been tinkering. He's been throwing fewer changeups and fewer sliders in his past 7 starts, but that hasn't changed the plate discipline numbers, and the batted ball numbers are actually getting a bit worse. He's let up a 45% fly ball rate with a 43% hard hit rate in this time. Freeland has had some good starts at home in this span. He held the Braves to no runs across 7 innings back on June 4th. They're better against lefties than the Dodgers are, but I'm not going to avoid what I think is a good stack based on one good start for Freeland and one bad outing for the Dodgers last night, where they had a short turnaround coming off of a late game on Sunday. The process says we should be here, and I agree with it. So the Dodgers, despite last night's clunker, are a quality option here for today. Now, within these Dodgers stack, I will be in on Trace Thompson when I'm going there. He hit 6th against the lefty a couple days ago. He's hitting against righties too. They've had him in the lineup. He was in there last night. So I'd expect him to probably hit 6th or so tonight. He was spanking the ball down in AAA. He had a 340 ISO there with a 46% fly ball rate. He struck out a lot in the big leagues so far, which is a concern, but it's less of a concern against a guy like Kyle Freeland, who doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. So Thompson, to me, is a deserving core play here at $2,500 because of the platoon advantage, because of the salary, because of the offense. All that stuff adds up to make Thompson, at least to me, a really good value play for today at $2,500. The second stack is going to be the Rangers. The park here is not nearly as advantageous as they're in Kauffman Stadium, but it is at least warm. It is 84 degrees, which is second warmest behind Coors Field, so it's not terrible. They're facing Jonathan Heasley for tonight. Heasley's still getting fine results despite his poor peripherals. He has a 4.14 ERA. His expected ERA, though, is 5.51. He has a 5.20 skill interactive ERA, strikeout rate 18%, walk rate 12%. Typically, when you see a gap between results and peripherals, it's because the guy has good batted ball numbers, but that's not the case here. Both the hard hit rate and the fly ball rate against Heasley around 44%. Teams should be teeing off on him, but they're not doing that just yet. We did see some cracks in the most recent starts. He let up 4 earned runs to the Angels. There were 2 home runs there. I'm expecting that to be more the norm as the sample expands. The Rangers offense is not great, but they've got enough guys we can feel good with. So I'm on them here behind the Dodgers for tonight. We do want to favor lefties against Heasley, and I do think that can include Josh Smith. He's not a big power guy, but he has some upside for DFS via his legs. He's batting leadoff now, and he draws walks, which gives him more shots at that upside play for him and stolen bases. Heasley will walk a lot of guys, so Smith isn't the big ISO guy we typically go toward for DFS, but he does still have a path to upside via his speed. So Smith, $2,200 for tonight, very advantageous salary given the multiple paths, or I guess one path he has to upside via his legs, but 22, batting leadoff, has some upside, enough for me to feel pretty good about him there. So you got Thompson on the Dodgers, you got Josh Smith on the Rangers as far as big value plays, and I do think there is one in their third stack too, and that's the Cardinals. They will be high on my list, facing Braxton Garrett, who's a lefty, and that's kind of the key thing here because it's the Cardinals. Garrett has looked pretty good, both in AAA and the majors so far this year. He has had a 3.12 ERA in AAA across 5 starts. It is 4.08 in the majors in 4 starts. And Garrett does get some ground balls, which can be a bit annoying from a stacking perspective. But those ground balls haven't necessarily followed him to the big leagues in his 2 different stints, or 3 different stints, I guess. But last year, 38% ground ball rate in the majors. It is 43% this year in 4 starts. Not a huge sample, but growing. And when you couple a 43% or a 43% ground ball rate with a lot of hard contact, it's possible to get in trouble. And that's especially true against a very good offense, which the Cardinals have. They're a great one against lefties with a 130 WRC plus in the active roster, a 44% fly ball rate, low strikeout rate. So if Garrett's facing a more middling offense, I'm not stacking here. The ground ball rate's pretty good, stuff like that. But against the Cardinals, it's a different discussion. I think you got to be pretty good as a lefty to shut them down. And I'm not sure Garrett's quite there yet. I will take a swipe here at the Cardinals and see if Garrett can get the job done. And I'll put them third behind the Dodgers and the Rangers for tonight. The value play here, we got Trace Thompson for the Dodgers. We've got Smith for the Rangers. It's Juan Yepez for the Cardinals, and he'll be a big part of that, whether it's as a stack or as a one-off to get you one more value play to get to more high-salary Dodgers or Adolis Garcia. Yepez is $2,400. He is eligible at first base and outfield. He went deep twice last night. Now has 3 home runs the past 2 games. And that's not a surprise because he showed a lot of power in AAA. And he gets you, multi-homer upside for a very low salary. So if you need help squeezing in some of the key Dodgers or squeezing in Adolis Garcia on the Rangers, or just getting to those guys while using Wheeler or Rodon, Yepez is a pretty good one-off. So Smith, Thompson, Yepez, I think between those 3 guys, you've got enough salary flexibility to stack the Dodgers and use Rodon or Wheeler despite their high salaries. I think you can make that work for tonight. So as a pure one-off, I think Yepez is my favorite. It's between him and Thompson, but pretty close. I think that Yepez really good option for today, but probably Thompson because of the Coors effect, but Yepez very close second, and they're both above Smith for me in terms of pure one-offs for tonight. Things to watch on this Tuesday slate. I do think there is some reason to consider Brandon Woodruff in tournaments. He's coming off the IL, so the pitch count here could be a little bit wonky, but he went 51 and 74 pitches in his 2 rehab starts, so I think he could go 90 or so tonight. That'd be a pretty good number for him. Woodruff was electric in those 2 rehab starts, looked really good, so the numbness in his fingers, to me at least, is less concerning now, given how well he pitched there. It seemed like he had a good feel for his pitches in those 2 starts. I'm not going to do it a ton with Woodruff, especially because I do like Gray, but I'll have some shares. I think that he showed me enough, pitch counts high enough to at least consider him for tonight. Chase Silseth is coming back up for the Angels to start tonight. Great numbers in AAA, both in his first stint and his second stint, but really did struggle his first time in the majors. A lot of hard contact, not enough strikeouts. I'm not totally sold that 4-start sample for Silseth is what we should expect going forward, but I will have some White Sox stacked tonight to see what he's got. I think that we can definitely justify that for sure. And I also don't mind stacking the other side of that game with the Angels in tournaments specifically. Johnny Cueto, really high salary for DFS tonight, $9,600. So I'm not typically stacking there, but his velocity has been low for his past 5 starts, and he's let up a lot of fly balls and a lot of hard contact. I'm not sure if the Angels will connect here, but Angels offense is pretty good. I don't think they'll be super popular for tonight, so I wouldn't mind the Angels for sure as a route to go for DFS. If you want to deviate on a 14-game slate, especially if people are going towards a couple offenses in general, don't mind the Angels as a differentiation play for stacking for tonight. Okay, let's finish up with our dinger calls for today. I'm going to go with Adolis Garcia as the boring one. I mentioned Heasley, the hard contact and fly balls he's let up. It's a really rough profile in terms of trying to project homers going forward. Had some success here last week with Jared Walsh against him. So I'll go with Adolis Garcia as the boring home run call for tonight. The fun one is kind of cheating because it's at Coors Field, but it's Trace Thompson. And I feel okay making him the fun one because, he's not a guy who's been in the big leagues all that long so far this year. We don't traditionally think of Thompson as being a big power guy outside of that one spurt he had back in 2016. But, I'm fine with it. I think that he's at least interesting enough to give him a shot here. So I'll trust the numbers he put up in the minor leagues earlier on this year. Trust the power he's shown at times, and I'll make him a fun one. It's at Coors Field, so it's cheating, but hey, as always, my podcast, my rules. So the home run calls for tonight, Adolis Garcia and Trace Thompson. That is all that we have here for today on the solo shot. Again, it's painful to go back to the Dodgers, but I do think it's the right play for tonight. And hopefully, other teams can help make it more fun for you if you are, like me, dealing with the trauma of last night, but we'll see how things go in the bounce back for today. Once again, our PGA podcast for the John Deere Classic coming up later on today. It's at 10 a.m. on the FanDuel YouTube page and up on the Number Fire Daily Fantasy podcast feed after we're done recording. So subscribe to the YouTube page where these podcasts are posted after the fact for the solo shot and PGA podcast recorded live each and every week. If you've got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down Wednesday's slate. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.